Some news that Keith Pompey is in Vegas, where he said it's about 96 in the shade.
Extremely hot.
Came back with this one for him there. Hey, Keith, how are you?
96 is probably 109, bro.
Well, they didn't come out with that one yet. I will tell Third World they need to update this one. Well, we know the Sixers Summer League is wrapping up out there. They got the game tonight at 6:30. But I guess really, for the big club, the story is that the Saric. Do we feel like the Saric story, as the Saric turn, there is a resolution finally?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you just got to wait on the day. I mean, there's a report that it's going to be Friday. People, it's like people don't want to, confirm it, deny it, what have you, just because, he has to get clearance. As of yesterday, he had to still get his clearance. So, he's supposed to come here one day this weekend and sign his contract, look for a place to stay, and then fly back to Croatia to prepare for the Olympics.
So the plan is he's coming to Philly, sign the deal, and that he will play. That's the thought, though, that he will play for the upcoming 2016-2017 season, correct?
Yeah, that's the thought. I mean, the thought is that he will be a member of the Sixers next season.
Is that a surprise? I mean, where did you stand on that? I mean, obviously we know the monetary loss he's taking. Not only this, Keith, he had to pay to play for the Sixers, right? In essence, he has to pay for the buyout, so it cost him about $500,000 to do that. In the end, what drew him to want to leave Turkey now?
Well, I mean, apparently he told, when he was drafted, he made a promise to Brett Brown and said, after 2 years, I will be here. And Dario says, people say that Dario wants to honor that promise. And he also wants to, start his career with the NBA. But the thing is like, if you think of his buyout is way better than the other guys. I mean, his is $1 million, so, he'll only end up paying $350,000, whereas the other guy's buyout is $2 million, talking about the guy Furkan Korkmaz. So, if you really think about it, the Sixers are basically getting Dario. Dario's like getting out of it for a deal. I mean, it's hard to say $350,000 is a deal, but comparable to his other teammate, it is.
Yeah, and again, the Sixers can only fork over $650,000 of that money, so he's got to cover the rest of that himself. And he is expected to sign with the Sixers tomorrow or sometime this weekend. I guess he's flying in right now. I mean, I know this fact that his Olympic team or his team made the Olympics kind of put a wrench in everything there for a little while. But so it looks like Saric. It looks like he's going to be joining the fold here. I want to get your take on something you wrote about over at Philly.com in the Inquirer, Keith, which was one of the free agents that decided to come here, and that's Jerry Bayless. What drew him to want to come to Philadelphia? Because there's been so much talk about whether or not free agents would want to come here, and if Colangelo could kind of get guys to come here. What made Bayless decide that Philly was a good fit for him?
Well, one thing was Colangelo, but the main thing was Ben Simmons. They get the first overall pick. He also thinks that if Joel Embiid can play, he can become a great player. So he's looking at these two guys, and, it was always said that the Sixers would have to get a marquee player to attract other free agents, and to attract free agents. And it just seems like at this particular time that Ben Simmons is that guy for the type, the level of player that Gerald Bayless is. And that's what he said. He said he felt that was a great thing. Also, he knows Bryan Colangelo. He pointed out when he was a high schooler in Phoenix, Bryan was the general manager of the Phoenix Suns, and they had a lot of success. So he knows what Bryan is capable of doing, and he wants to be a part of that.
Hey, Keith, it's Pete Thompson. Do you think that Bryan Colangelo's had the impact that you would have thought he would have in getting free agents to come here so far?
I don't. Well, here's the thing. Bryan Colangelo went after, the two targets that he had. One was DeMar DeRozan, the other one was Harrison Barnes. He knew that he couldn't, and when he realized he couldn't get those two guys, he decided to step back and then basically give out short-term deals. That way, so whereas next year free agency is going to come, and then in a couple of years, he didn't want to be tied down to lucrative contracts with a guy with, let's say, 4 years, 98 to 100 million, who's going to be a guy that within a couple of years they're going to try to get rid of, And so I think if you want to say impact, it's not the impact that people wanted, but at the same time, he didn't want to do something stupid or make a big move that will hurt the franchise. I mean, this isn't really a quality free agent class, so if you can't get the top guys, it doesn't make a lot of sense in spending money on B-list guys.
Well, who has impressed you in the Summer League so far, Keith? And we're talking with Keith Pompey, talking a little Sixers basketball. Who's impressed you other than Simmons in the Summer League so far?
The guy who got away, Christian Wood. I mean, Christian Wood has been great. I mean, the knock on Christian last year was that he didn't take the game seriously as far as like the preparation side, and he, with that he was a little, weak in the inside. He bulked up, man. He added like 12 pounds of muscle. He had more confidence. He was going strong to the rim, so he really impressed me. Actually, he impressed me the most. But unfortunately for him, it was a situation where you knew that it would be hard for them to keep him. I mean, they're already, trying to get rid of a center, trying to shed a center. So here's an extra guy, and there wasn't any room. Outside of that, yeah, I would have to say that, the normal suspects like a Rashawn Holmes, a T.J. McConnell, here are two guys who came back after, last year being their rookie season. They're more confident. And they also are players, and you can see it. Like, last year they looked like guys who were trying to make an NBA roster. This year they look like guys who are NBA players who happen to have to play on a summer league team. So those three, I must say, really impressed me the most.
Keith Pompey is with us from the Inquirer in Vegas for the Summer League. Sixers taking on the Nets at 6:30. Bryan Colangelo kind of acknowledged the other day that he's not comfortable with all these bigs, but that he's just not going to give them away. They're going to wait for the right deal. But he said everybody is trying to basically poach our bigs. Everyone's calling us. So do you think it's inevitable that something gets done by the beginning of the year, Keith?
It depends on what they get, but I can't see them going into the season with all three of these centers. It could happen if he doesn't get anything. But I think that teams realize maybe he's not as desperate to unload them as initially thought. The fact that he's keeping them, the fact that he kept them, he has yet to make a trade yet, may make a team think like, whoa, this guy is for real. And even if he keeps them during the season, it could be a possibility like in November or somewhere where a team like needs a big that they may be willing to give up more than what they are now. They may give up some draft picks. They may give up a quality player. So all of it is gamemanship. It's one of those things where if you give them up now, you're not going to get anything. If you hold on to them, you're just basically bringing up the market value for the player.
Keith, I'm curious about some of the signings that they did make. Would you say that guys like Henderson and Rodriguez also liked the young talent here, and that's what led them to sign with the Sixers?
Say that again. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question?
That's okay. Just would you say that guys like Henderson and Rodriguez, did they like the young talent, and that's what compelled them to sign with the Sixers?
Well, Henderson, here's the thing. Rodriguez is kind of hard because we have yet to speak to him, to speak to it. I think it could be an opportunity for him to come back to the States. He was playing over in Spain, and it's one of those things where the NBA is regarded as the best league in the world. And he had a shot at it before, and maybe he just wants to come back and try again. Gerald Henderson, his father played for the Sixers. He grew up in Bluebell. He played for Episcopal Academy. He's a Philly guy. And with his father playing for the Sixers, he was always around the organization. So for him, it's sort of like a homecoming. It's also sort of like an opportunity for him to show what he can do. I mean, he left Charlotte, and then he went on to Portland. He was, I'm assuming he was projected to be the starter. He didn't keep that role. He didn't get that role. He came off the bench. So here's a time for him to go to a young team. He could become a leader, but at the same time, he can assert himself, and he can play at the level that he's capable of. So I think for him as a homecoming is a great opportunity, for him to solidify a starting spot and be the leader of a team. And the other guy I think is, again, I haven't spoken to him, but, he was in the NBA, and then he left, and he spent 5 years back in Spain. And, you assume that he just wants to get back into the league.
Sergio Rodriguez. We're talking with Keith Pompey from the Philadelphia Inquirer about the Sixers in the Summer League. Now, Keith, the roster, obviously, that opening day 15 is so far from being decided on. But as you look down at the possibilities of how the roster breaks out, where do you think the hardest position is, or where do you think they're going to have the most difficulty making those final decisions?
It's hard to talk about that right now because, no one knows what they're going to do. We don't know if, heck, we could get home on Tuesday and hear about a trade. You know what I mean? So until I know what they're going to do, it's kind of hard for me to say it. All we know is right now that they're going to have an unbalanced roster. They have a bunch of power forwards and centers right now, even with the loss of Christian Wood, who basically, they want to bring back. So that there's going to have to be some changes because they have to get more wings in here, more twos and more threes. So until that happens, it's kind of hard for me to say, what's going to be the toughest cut because I don't know who's going to be on the team.
Is Wood reportedly signing with Charlotte? Is that what we're hearing?
Yeah, actually, he already did.
Okay.
He signed this morning, yeah.
Keith, what do you make of the Sixers reportedly expressing some interest in Bogut? I mean, that seems like it makes no sense, right?
It's one of those things where you got to be careful a lot of times because, the Sixers somebody may make a phone call to the Sixers may make a phone call, but a lot of times some of these phone calls are could be on the surface hey, is it true that I'm hearing that you're trying to trade a guy or you're trying to, or your client may want to come here? What's the deal with that? And then that's it. The conversation stalls. But also I think the fact that the Sixers do have a lot of cap space, whereas let's say a Rajon Rondo or someone like that, they know that they're not coming to Philadelphia. But what they'll do is they'll say, hey, Philadelphia is one of the teams interested in me, and I'm really considering going there. And all that does is it drives up the market price. So until, I get some substantial stuff, when I hear names just being thrown out, I got to wonder to myself, was it just a phone call or was it just an agent-driven? I mean, what is, so I really can't speak to that.
So as we talk free agency, Keith, and as we talk guys that are coming here or guys that are rumored to come here, would you consider Philly now a destination for free agents? Has it become a place where people want to go?
I mean, if you talk to Gerald Bayless, it is. I mean, but again, it's kind of like one of those things where you just have to, it depends on what type of free agent. I mean, the Sixers will tell you that. Right now, is it a destination for a Kevin Durant? Is it a destination for a LeBron James type player? No, it's not. But it is a destination for a second-tier player like a Gerald Bayless, a guy like that. But, you have to, you just can't get a Ben Simmons at this particular time. You have to see him play in the actual NBA game. And that's what the Sixers are doing. If you think about it, these contracts that they have, the one guy is 1 year, the other guy is 2 years, the third one is 3 years. So 3 years, Ben Simmons will be going into his fourth year. They're going to have a lot of cap space. They're going to have a lot of freedom. And I believe that at that particular time is when they're really going to attract the top-notch free agents. Right now, what they're doing is they're getting capable veterans who can play on the NBA level, who can help lead a young team. But in 3 years, that's when I think they're really going to make a splash. It may come sooner, but that has to be the target date. And, a lot of times we get caught up hey, is this a destination for free agents? I mean, dude, believe me, they know that right now they're still a young team. They're coming off a 10-win season. So for the top-notch free agents, is a wait-and-see process at this particular time.
All right, the 76ers, a very fluid team, as Keith has kind of alluded to. We still have no idea what this team will look like when they get to training camp, which will be either in the new building or maybe down here in Stockton again. We don't know. Do they know if that building will be ready, Keith?
The new building is supposed to be completed in September, so, yeah, it should be ready to go.
All right, that could be a big boost for free agents as well. Keith Pompey, everybody, Philly.com.
Thanks, Keith.
And the Inquirer. Thanks, Keith.
Man, thanks for having me, fellas.